I'm Jeremy Shepherd.
And I'm Damien.
We use data to expose deceitful property experts and their marketing BS. This is the Expert Busting series.
Welcome to episode 7 of the Expert Busting series, How Depreciation Hurts Capital Growth. Jez, let's jump in.
Yeah, don't buy properties with high rates of depreciation. It's a mistake to think that there's any benefit in this. It's actually the complete opposite. We're going to show you some data, some examples, and we will explain what depreciation is, how it hurts. Let's get into it.
So, Jeremy, what is depreciation?
Right, so many investors have this poor understanding of exactly what depreciation is. They think of depreciation as simply a claim that you make on your tax return. It's some paperwork. It's a leg up tax trick. They think it's like a government handout, a thank you from the ATO for being a property investor. But depreciation is not a government handout. It is a loss in the value of the dwelling, what's being constructed, the building for your investment property over time. Over time, the building depreciates as it ages. That is depreciation. It is not applicable to land because land does not depreciate.
And it's not a tax dodge. It's not a government handout, and it's not free money.
Yeah, that's right. It is not a good thing.
And I think this is, besides, we hear this all the time, cash flow, cash flow, cash flow. And I always bring it back to, well, what's your personal circumstances? Like every month, how much is your savings or offset growing by? So when I see clients coming in really trying to get that 1 or 2 or 3 extra percent yield, or like maybe that 0.5 or 1% extra, it doesn't have a huge impact. And a lot of people or investors will get drawn to depreciation because it's like, oh, it helps me with my cash flows now. With capital growth, I have to wait, and then I have to wait to either sell down or pull equity out. So look, you could find that nice balance if it is a big issue for you, a property that's maybe, 15, 20 years old. But we always go for that land to asset ratio and get that bigger block size if you can. And depreciation can only be claimable for investment properties, not your owner occupier that you live in. Again, you can talk to your tax accountant. This isn't tax advice, but
yes, so you can buy a brand new property with high rates of depreciation and live in it. That's a lifestyle choice. But if it's an investment choice, you're going to suffer. Every bit of depreciation is a bad thing.
Well, back in the day, maybe 2015, 2016, maybe 10 years ago now, that I would say there were a lot of off the plans being sold off in a lot of these estate areas. Maybe not so much common now, do you think? Or there's still a lot of...
Oh, yeah, I think they're everywhere still.
Okay, I'll have to jump back on social media. Maybe I haven't been marketed too heavily enough. I see more of these buyer's agents pop up on my feed, not like the brand new stuff too much. So,
so what is it? So land goes up in value. It appreciates. But the dwelling built on top of that land, that depreciates as it ages. So let's say you start up an ice cream shop and you've got an ice cream maker and freezer and so on. As they age, they depreciate it. They depreciate, and you can claim that depreciation, that loss, against the income that you earn. And it's the same from an investment perspective. If you have an investment property, it gets rental income, but the building depreciates over time, and you can claim that up to a point in time.
Yes, I think the point here is land goes up in value. So think of maybe the building component. An example I would use is you buy a car. You buy a car, and typically a lot of people will turn over their cars in that sort of first 3, 4, 5 years because they're claiming a bulk of the depreciation of the vehicle. If it's for their income purposes, i.e. maybe they're a real estate agent or they purely use it just for work purposes, they buy a brand new car, they depreciate it, and then they go off and buy another car and keep claiming that depreciation on the value of the car.
Right. Yeah. Well,
but years ago,
it's the same with property.
Maybe around COVID, you could have bought that brand new car, had it for 3 years, claimed depreciation, and still sold it for the same amount because there was such a big demand for cars back then. So can work both ways, but very rarely we steer clear of it if we can.
Yeah. So depreciation is it's a dollar estimate in the loss of value based on age. And quantity surveyors are experts in this. They have learned how quickly certain items depreciate. For example, they know how quickly a hot water tank will depreciate compared to an air conditioner, compared to carpet, all those sorts of things. So a quantity surveyor can list all the items of a house or a unit, including the building itself, and they come up with this estimate of lost value based on how much it has aged. And they can even forecast the loss of further aging, and they draw up a schedule. We'll show you a schedule soon. And a depreciation schedule estimates how much value you've lost due to aging over the lifetime of your investment property.
And another example is to, like, let's say you're looking to buy an investment property now, you can actually reach out to a quantity surveyor and get estimates on what they believe is available in the depreciation of the property. So the property could be 40 years old or 50 years old, and it has already been fully depreciated. But let's say there's been a renovation, and they can assess that by the photos alone, or they might get someone to do a walkthrough, and they might go, okay, look, maybe based on our estimates, there's a bit of depreciation for this over the next 10 or 15 years. So they'll be able to say yes or no. And if it is a yes and there is an amount that can be depreciated, you pay their fee, and then you'll also get depreciation for those later years down the track. So that's one way. But typically, if it's an older property, hasn't been renovated, less likely that you're going to have any depreciation in that property. You buy something already renovated, you're most probably paying a premium for that property going into a heated market. So it's a bit of a balancing act. The other thing you can do is buy an older property, do all your renovations, the paint, the carpet, could be the dishwasher, washing machine, whatever it might be, bits and pieces, and then you can grab all those invoices, provide it to your accountant, and then they can claim that in future years. Because why would you go to a quantity surveyor when you can just give all those invoices directly to your accountant? So I would always start with a quantity surveyor. Hey, I'm looking at this property. It's 50 years old. Is there any depreciation? They might go, no. Okay, you're planning on doing your renos. Keep all the invoices, send them through to your accountant, and they'll claim it in future years.
Nice.
Bonus tip.
All right, yeah. So there's a couple of different divisions. Damo, do you want to take us through the different divisions of the tax law here?
Yeah, so it's a little bit different. So things change. So with the federal budget ruling back on the 9th of May 2017, let's say you built a brand new house, okay? Brand new house, and this is an example I've got here. So I think this is maybe from BMT. There's a couple out there. You've got Duotax also. That's quite popular, but there's a lot of quantity surveys out there. But this is just an example on BMT. But this is an example of a property that's been built, and there's a plant and equipment component. So plant and equipment is pretty much anything within that. So it could be fixtures, fittings, anything that can be removed. It could be things like blinds, carpet, oven, range hood, ventilation, aircon, whatever it might be. That falls under Division 40. And then you've got Division 43, which is the capital works. So that's the building. That's the building, the house, the structure.
Yeah.
Okay. But what happened on the 9th of May 2017, let's say you built this property, and let's say you moved in there first. Okay, you moved in there, or let's say you had it as an investment either way and you sold it to someone else later on. They can't then go claim all the plant and equipment. That's pretty much goes to nil right away. But this will stay. The Division 43, you can still claim in future years. So, so pretty much for any secondhand plant and equipment as an investor, they're not going to be deductible when they move over to that next purchaser, if that makes sense.
Right.
And I think it's just, I don't know if it was just to stop people maybe, I don't know, was it to stop them buying brand new properties? I don't know.
Unlikely. They're trying to encourage that. We need more supply.
Yeah, I was just maybe deter investors buying. Yeah, I'd have to find out. So if anyone knows, maybe leave a comment there for us. But that's how they sort of both set out. All right. And then this is, what have I got here? Built 1980. Yeah, so typically kitchens renovated in 2005. Okay, these are some examples that I had, but pretty much like if a kitchen was renovated in 2005, it could potentially be depreciated over a certain period. So normally the buildings component can be done over 40 years. So you can claim 2.5% every single year, if that makes sense.
That's the prime cost method, isn't it?
That's the prime cost method. That's right. And then you've got the diminishing value method, where you can sort of claim a lot more upfront. So like, let's say you're on a higher income, you might decide to go down the diminishing value, so you claim a lot more upfront. The prime cost is a bit more stable in the way that you can claim it. But again, you can talk to your tax accountant about that. But they're sort of the two different estimates. Is that clear on the screen, Jez?
Yeah, but I just want to look at that chart you were showing with there's a difference between diminishing value and prime cost. So diminishing value is a more realistic way of modelling what actually happens. So you build a brand new house. The newer it is, the faster it depreciates. So over the first 10 years, it's going to lose more in value than it does over the second 10 years. Well, and that's what the ATO are trying to model here.
Yeah, you can pick. You can say, look, I want to claim the property at a diminishing value compared to a prime cost. So think of it as like, if I'm on a higher income, well, I want to claim that back sooner because I'm getting that cash flow a lot sooner. But let's say, for example, in the future years, you might think that, like let's say maybe you're 10 years from retirement and you're still on a really good income. You want to claim as much as you can, but then later on, you know that your income's going to drop, or you might go to part-time. There's going to be less to claim at those later years with the diminishing way. But with the prime, it's a bit more stable. You can see through the years how stable it is. And the reason why it's really low in that first year, it hasn't taken the first 12 months of depreciation. It's been prorated. So typically it'd start at that higher amount, if that makes sense. So it started from like 19th of June. So we've only got a little bit to claim. And then the first full year is from July 2019.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So there's a portion of a financial year there.
Yeah, but the idea is if you buy a property that's like, 40 years old, 50 years old, and it has no renovation or nothing's been done to it, you're going to have zero depreciation to claim because the asset has been fully depreciated.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's actually a good thing, not a bad thing, which we'll come to soon.
All righty. What have we got here? We've got capital growth. So
capital growth is also called appreciation, AP. So it's an increase in value over time. That obviously is a good thing. I call it the ants pants of property investing. Nothing changes a property investor's net wealth position faster than capital growth. The opposite of appreciation is depreciation. It's a bad thing. It's something to be avoided. It's when an asset becomes less valuable over time. So appreciation good, depreciation bad. Capital growth good. The opposite of capital growth is depreciation. So just keep that in perspective, what's good and what's bad.
Now let's look at a tax example here. So your income is 100,000, you've got losses of 5,000, and you got your taxable income. So your income is what you receive from your employer or your business. But then let's say a lot of people, I guess, are always looking for something to claim back to reduce their taxable income, so they get a tax refund at the end of the year. Everyone likes that, don't they, Jez? A bit of Christmas in July.
Yeah.
And then examples could be like, maybe if you work from home, there could be some home office expenses. There could be things like income protection, so a portion of that could be deductible. You might have your accounting fees. Look, dry cleaning, depending on the profession, it could be donations, whatever it might be. There might be losses that can bring down your taxable income. And a lot of people invest in property for this reason. They bring their taxable income down, but they're investing in these assets that are growing at a rapid pace.
Yeah, and this is just a general tax law. This isn't specific to property investing. In tax generally, you can claim your losses against your earnings, and then you pay tax on the net profit. So it's the same with property, and one of the losses that you can claim is depreciation.
And if we have a look at this example, let's say we've got an investment property and we've received 20,000 in rent for the year, but our expenses are made up of 30,000. So it could be the mortgage interest, could be property management, council rates, insurances, repairs and maintenance. And then the big one here is I've allocated 10,000 of depreciation. So your net expenses is 30,000 and your net amount is negative 10,000 because of that depreciation. On your tax return, you'll have that depreciation amount there that's going to reduce your taxable income, and you're going to get a little bit of money back based on your marginal tax rate. But it's more about, is that asset that you're owning outperforming?
Yeah, you'd want some growth in this circumstance to exceed that minus 10,000 and hopefully by a good margin. But I think where people get confused is you pay interest, you pay a property manager their fee, you pay council, you pay insurers, you pay tradies to do repairs and maintenance, but you don't pay depreciation, you claim the loss. So it's something that it doesn't have to come out of your wallet or your bank account, but it is real. And there's a lot of people out there, sometimes they get a commission from selling new property, that'll try and tell you that depreciation isn't really a loss that you incur. It's real, it does happen. It's just that you don't see it because it's measured in the value of your property. It doesn't come out of your wallet.
And I would argue the fact that, let's say you bought a property, let's say it could be in Perth or in Queensland, wherever it might have been, you bought a brand new property and it's done well. You've had a great experience. So when you hear that depreciation is a bad thing because you've had asset growth in the property that you purchased, I always say, look at a comparable. Let's say you bought that property in 2018 as an example, brand new on 400 square meters. Look a couple suburbs in or further away and you got 800 square meters at the same price or cheaper. What's your land to asset ratio? That's the biggest thing. That's the best example that you can go away and go, would have I done better if I bought something that was established? Has that performed better in that period? Because that's the best way to sort of really look at it, isn't it?
Yeah, and even in the same suburb, you could have some old properties selling at the same time as new properties. In fact, if you have two properties side by side in the same street and they are identical in every way except one's got a new building on it, the other's got an old building, it is a mathematical certainty that the old property will outperform the new because of depreciation.
And you get it at a cheap price if they're next door to each other. That's already been factored into that brand new property.
That's
and you
right,
see it all the time. Like with the typical values in a pocket, you might have a property that sells for $200,000 or $300,000. Like there are differences, i.e., could be on a main road or depending on what it might be, newer properties, older properties, renovated, unrenovated. So it's just a matter of suburb selection first, then down to that property, depending on what your budget is. But this is a perfect example with that depreciation. And this is what we mentioned, you don't get it all back. So if we claim 10,000, okay, we give it the quantity report to our accountant, they claim 10,000, reduces their taxable income by 10,000. And let's say you're on a tax rate, we're just using a rounded number here. Let's say 40 cents to the dollar. You pay $4,000 less tax. So you're not better off by 4,000, you're actually worse off by 6,000.
Yeah, so you're thinking about this depreciation. You claim $10,000 and you pay less tax. So your income comes down by $10,000, so you're paying less tax. And that amount, with the example here, 40 cents in the dollar, means you pay $4,000 less tax. And immediately people think, oh, I'm better off by $4,000. No, you're not. You're actually worse off by $6,000 because there was a $10,000 loss. It's not as bad as $10,000. It's only as bad as $6,000, but it's still worse than zero. A $0 loss is what you would have for a property that is not depreciating.
The amount of times I hear people say, oh, property's not costing me much, but they're not looking at the actual capital growth of the property. Like what's the future prospects of capital growth? Oh, it's a great property. It's not costing me anything. And I'm like, well, what did you buy it for? 500,000. What's it worth now? 500,000. Come on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
In that period of time, the rest of the market has moved on and you're actually falling behind.
And it happens all the time. Like there's so many times when a market is stagnant, but then other markets have gone up by 40, 50% over the 3 years.
Yeah. You got to compare yourself to the national growth rate.
Maintenance.
Yeah, so depreciation is different to repairs and maintenance. Repairs and maintenance are costs that you incur immediately, like the hot water cylinder, I think that's what the picture is in the middle there. So that might go bung. Foot traffic wears a hole in the carpet. I think that's the rug on the right there. So there are expenses that you need to pay right away. And like depreciation, you can claim those expenses as a loss on your tax return. But depreciation is a bit different. Something becomes less valuable as it ages, even before it needs to be replaced. The building itself, that's part of this, and all its fixtures and fittings like the range hood, kitchen, shower heads, so on. So all of these things become less valuable as they age, and the tax office allows you to claim these losses as a tax deduction to reflect the new age and therefore new value of your asset.
And with the hot water cylinder, there'd be two components. One could be repairs where you can claim it right away. But if you have to buy a whole hot water system, well, that's going to be depreciated then over a period of time. So an example would be, let's say I got a new hot water system and then, Jez, you bought the property off me a year later. I decided to sell it. You'd still have some well, actually, you wouldn't because, wouldn't.
Division 40?
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, so you wouldn't. But if you put a new deck out the back, then I would.
Let's do
an example.
The back deck. Yeah, so let's go through this example of the back deck. So this is an example of depreciation of just one part of a rental property. So let's say you build a deck out the back for $40,000 and assume this deck is believed to have a lifetime of 40 years, just to make the numbers easy. You can claim $1,000 a year in depreciation for the next 40 years. So the assumption the ATO is making there is that you are going to have to replace this deck in 40 years' time, and you're going to have to spend some money to replace it. So you can claim the aging in value. It's worthless after 40 years, so you can claim $1,000 a year for 40 years. Now, there are other options like the diminishing value method, but we'll just keep it simple like the prime cost, which is $1,000 a year. Now, let's say you earn $100,000 a year from your job. So instead of declaring an income to the ATO of $100,000, you're now allowed to declare an income of only $99,000 because you've claimed $1,000 in depreciation for the deck. That means you get taxed on a lower amount. You pay less tax. You're not being taxed on an income of $100,000. You're being taxed on an income of $99,000, even though your employer still pays you the same amount. So now let's say you're paying the tax office 40 cents for every extra dollar you earn. With the deck depreciating at $1,000 a year, you're now declaring a taxable income of only $99,000. That $1,000 difference at a marginal tax rate of 40% is worth $400. In other words, by claiming the $1,000 loss, you pay $400 less tax, and that's each year. Now, again, this does not mean you are better off by $400 each year. It means you are worse off by $600 a year compared to having a property with an old deck that is already fully depreciated.
The 40% I think we mentioned earlier is an estimate 40%. So it's not like just to make things simple.
Yeah,
these aren't the actual tax rates. The back deck, I think, again, you'd have to talk to a tax accountant, but it's 40 years or 2.5% per annum due to the fact that it's a capital improvement. Like you're putting a capital injection, i.e. the back deck. It's like construction pretty much.
Yeah, and this is for an investment property.
For an investment property, that's right.
Not your personal home.
Correct. Or it could have been, yeah, that's right. It's for an investment property and it's not your home. So I think this is a really good example, to look at. And I think just on that point, sorry, you go, Jez.
Yeah, you finished off the slide. I want to go to the next slide.
Like it's a debate, I guess, and maybe it's a debate around, do you buy something a little bit newer where it's like there's no maintenance issues, it's all fine, you can claim depreciation. Like, do you find that middle ground or do you go for that land to asset ratio? Like, what would you do?
I would go for maximum land asset ratio.
And I'm with you. I would always steer to that. And there might be some pushback because you're buying a property that's maybe 40, 50, 60 years old. As long as it's structurally okay, and the building and pest reports, they can be a bit tricky at times. The disclaimers everywhere, but that's why I think it's good to use a solid buyer's agent. They do their walkthrough and you just have your buffers in place. Like, I'd rather buy something that I'm most probably getting at a lower rate, but that land to asset ratio is a lot higher. I'm not paying a premium. I might be getting that stamp duty a little bit cheaper because I'm not paying that top dollar. And then I'd rather go in and then add the value off the back of it. So do my own reno, outsource it to a bit of the BA and the actual property manager.
Yeah, it's
simple.
If it's your reno project, then the profit margin is yours. You're not paying for someone else's reno project or some developer's new build.
Because you will see that discrepancy in the properties that have been prettied up recently. You are paying for someone else's renovation and they're charging for it.
Yeah. So after 40 years, you add up those $400 each year, you've paid $16,000 less tax, which sounds great when you add it all up, but there's a catch. Your deck is now theoretically worthless. Now, it might not be about to fall down, but if a valuer or a quantity surveyor were to come in and value your property, they would factor in the cost to build a new deck since it's now 40 years old and it may need replacing. Now, since the deck costs you $40,000 to begin with, your net position has actually gone backwards by $24,000. So note that you haven't lost $40,000 over 40 years. You've only lost $24,000 because you were able to claim the loss to get that tax discount. So with the tax claim, it's not as bad as a $40,000 loss. It's only as bad as a $24,000 loss. But here's the big point. It is still a loss. It's something to be minimised. You don't want to maximise losses. And that's where people get confused. They aim for these high depreciation properties. Depreciation is a loss.
Well, they could have paid $40,000. And a really simple example is you got a house side by side, and then you got that deck that you're paying $40,000 extra for that deck. Is that the way that you look at it, where there's already an existing deck there that might still be okay?
That's right, yeah. It's not worthless, but you've claimed its depreciation over all those years.
And then if you look at the ATO guidelines in plain English, I would say that the Div 43 is claimable. It reduces cost base. Actually, sorry. What happens is it reduces your cost base. So like let's say you go sell a property in 10 years' time and you've been claiming that deck. You've been claiming that deck, deck. What happens is it'll increase your capital gain in future years because you've been claiming that. Maybe I'm getting a bit ahead of myself and everyone else, but let's say the property is, let's say it costs $500,000, including all your stamp duty and all your purchase costs. That's like the cost base of the property, and you sell the property for $600,000. You sell the property.
Are you going to do the clawback? You're talking about the ATO's clawback of all that depreciation claimed?
Well, yeah, it gets added on. So like let's say you sell that property 10 years ahead and you made, let's say, $100,000 capital gain. You'd get a 50% discount on top of that, and then you pay tax at that $50,000 just gets bolted onto your taxable income. But what happens is, let's say you've claimed, let's say $10,000 in depreciation. Well, the way that you work it out is 600 minus 510,000, not 500, because it gets added back onto that cost base of the property.
So whatever you've claimed, the ATO grab it back at the time you sell.
Actually, it reduces your cost base. So instead of being 510, it should be 490 as an example. So if you've claimed 10 grand of that.
So it increases your capital gain.
Correct.
Yeah,
that's
it decreases the cost base, increases your capital gain.
That was it. Talk to a tax accountant, but that's...
Well, we do have a slide with an example, I think, somewhere.
But Div 40 is a bit different. Like it's got something to do with, it is handled a little bit separately. They call it, I think, the written down value versus the disposable value of the asset, of the fixtures and fittings. So it's a bit technical, but you can always talk to your accountant about that if you have been claiming that over time. But the thing is, it's there to be claimed. So if you don't claim it, I think legally by the ATO, you still need to show it. So if you're not claiming, for example, the Div 43, like that actual building component, that reduces your cost base either way. You claim it or you don't claim it. It's still reducing your cost base.
That's a good point. I may have been misleading there. I'm not saying don't claim depreciation. What I'm saying is don't target properties that have high rates of depreciation. But if you have bought one, then by all means, claim as much as you can.
I think it's like I said, the middle ground. You don't want to buy something that's maybe an absolute dump of a property that needs a lot of work, a lot of time. You might want to find something. The ideal scenario for me, and I know for you too, Jez, would be you buy a property that can be rented right away.
As is. Yeah,
As is.
right.
But you've got potential to add that value off the back of it.
Yeah, you want to be able to put a tenant in. Yeah. All right, so this is one of the big things about this whole topic. Depreciation is a loss. So there is a misnomer in property investment, and it's a term. I catch myself saying this. I'm embarrassed whenever I say it, but it just comes out of my mouth because so many people use this term depreciation benefits. There is nothing beneficial about depreciation. It is a loss. You actually want to avoid it, not maximise it. And I think where people get mixed up is when they start talking about claiming depreciation on their tax return. They think of it as a bonus.
It's a great thing. Well, everyone wants to roost the tax bill. Everyone wants to do it. And they like that big lump sum at the end of the year, don't they?
Yeah, it's you're not really hurting the ATO by doing this. So a better strategy is to minimise loss, not maximise it. Yet incredibly, there are some professionals in this industry who advise maximising depreciation, and some of them, they might do this because of either a lack of understanding of what depreciation technically is, but I think the majority of them do it because of a hidden agenda. They want to make the new property seem more appealing than an old property, maybe because they get a commission on the sale.
Well, it sounds good, doesn't it? Like you buy a property, it's only going to cost me $20 a week once you factor in depreciation, and I've got a house. Like it sounds great in theory, doesn't it?
Yeah, but you've just put yourself in a huge amount of debt for something that might not grow as fast as you think.
And there have, like I said, I know areas like of Perth, I know other markets that have been built brand new, they do go up in value, like depending on the amount of supply in the pocket. That's most probably the big one. You might have a little estate there where you've got in early, bought the block, built and done really well. Trying to do that these days, it's a lot more difficult because there's a lot more premiums in the block of land and there's a lot of premium built into the building of the property.
The premium I reckon is all in the building of the property. But you look at it from a developer's perspective. You're doing a feasibility for a project. The land is an expense to your project. It's the building you make the profit on. So you're trying to minimise the amount of land, maximise the amount of building, so you have the smallest land asset ratio. I was listening to or reading a blog by a developer, and they were beating their chest, carrying on about how they have this very high land asset ratio, and they were bragging about like 30%. I think I wouldn't touch 50%, and here they are bragging about 30%. It's crazy.
I don't know what it's education. It's got to be, this education needs to be somewhere, Jez. I know you've got all these other institutions, but look, I don't know. We won't go into it too much now, but I'm not a big fan of them, to be honest, personally. And I'm going to do a whole episode on it because I've seen businesses are part of these property institutions, as they call it. I'm sure everyone can figure out what I'm talking about, but they've got developers in there with these accreditations, property investment accreditations, and they're selling this off the plan and there's no accountability. It's like, whatever.
Yeah.
Like nothing gets stopped. It's all just,
Just as more on this topic, check out, I think it's episode number 3 in this series, New versus Old. There's more of it in there.
We need to, I don't know, just start up a council or something, or property. I don't know.
Anyone can.
Yeah, true.
Just create your own.
Selling. Now, this is actually the example I spoke about before, where you bought the property for $500,000. 400,000. Apologies. The depreciation is 30,000. Now, and it's good to have like maybe an Excel file somewhere when you buy your property. You work out what your stamp duty was, all your costs. It's always good to have a tab on all of that. So your cost base is down to 370,000. You've owned the property for 5 years and you sell it for 600,000. So you've made a capital gain of 230,000. Okay, not 200,000, 230 because you've claimed 30,000 of depreciation.
Yeah, so instead of paying capital gains tax on 200,000, you're paying capital gains tax on 230,000 because you've claimed 30,000 in depreciation.
Correct. And there'd be, we haven't factored in here, but there'd be a 50% discount on that if you've held the property for over a year in your personal name. So hence why like a lot of people might invest in their super funds due to those lower tax rates.
Yeah.
Okay. Bad advice.
Yeah, so if depreciation is such a bad thing, how do we get this term depreciation benefits? Now, I think a fair few accountants might advise their clients to buy a negatively geared investment property, and that will have high rates of depreciation like a brand new apartment, so that their client pays less tax. Now, the assumption they're making, accountants know tax very well, but they don't know property investing so well. The assumption is that you'll get capital growth, which adds to your net position while you're paying less tax year to year on a cash flow basis. But that assumes that all property grows at the same rate. And ironically, higher depreciating properties grow slower, which defeats the very purpose of the strategy. So it's like asking for a pay cut so you pay less tax. Oh, please, sir, can you drop down my wage so that I pay less tax? That's just shooting yourself in the foot. So if you want to pay zero tax, just earn $0.
What's the nirvana, Jez? What's the ideal? You have a massive asset base and you're earning a low amount of income, but you can still fund your lifestyle. Is that the dream?
Sounds good. Actually, my dream is just not to receive emails.
Just check it once a week. So,
and just before we leave that bad advice, I think that some accountants may have been responsible, well-meaning but responsible, whereas there is something a little bit more dastardly. There are property developers and they are trying to sell new property. So they want you to believe there's something good about losing money so that they can get a sale. And there are also sales agents that are working for developers who get a commission, and there are even some crafty types who disguise themselves as property investment advisors, but they make their money from flogging off new property, which of course has high rates of depreciation. That means if you have the choice to buy a new property or an old property in the same booming suburb, you should definitely choose the old one because it will perform better because it has lower rates of depreciation. So old will outperform new. All other things being equal, old will outperform new.
And we're only talking about investment, not owner-occupier.
Yes, sorry. Yes, of course.
Well, again, and most probably you're buying that property at a lower rate, like it's going to be cheaper. I'm talking more about new. There are instances where you want to actually move into your own home that you've decked out yourself. It's brand new. You're not buying a property that's maybe 40, 50 years old. You might want that smaller block size, but as long as you're aware that it may lead to maybe slower capital growth, like it depends on your strategy, right? You want a bit of stability, so you buy the home to live in. I know there's a lot of people in Sydney, they might rent in Sydney, but invest in Perth, invest in Melbourne, invest in Townsville. Like they just want to invest and get into those markets that are growing.
Yeah, I think that's, rent vesting is becoming a much more popular thing now, especially for people in Sydney.
But I think it's more education. I think there's like tax accountants and these property investment firms actually believe this is the right way. Maybe they don't even think about.
Yeah, well, in order to confidently say that depreciation is a good thing, the first mind that you need to fool is your own. And so, they do become very biased, but historical data shows that new properties underperform old.
I think it's a matter of you're paying a premium. If you're looking at two properties within a suburb, why is there a price discrepancy? So if you look at the recent sold property sales, you are paying pretty much a premium. Could be 100,000 more, 200,000 more, and you need to factor that into your cash flows. And look, I understand why some buyers agents firms buy newer properties. You know why?
It's easy.
Less headache.
Less
buy
headaches.
a property. I'm not going to hear from the client again, but is that really putting the client up front? I think as long as you're honest with the client and saying, look, we're buying an older property, it's got these issues, we may need to spend a bit of money, as long as they're aware of it, that's the crucial bit.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about the repairs and maintenance for an old property, so it might be, it's in the low single digit thousands. You might get a couple of phone calls from your property manager each year. But is that so annoying that you would forego like $20,000 of depreciation in a year? You know, we're comparing low single digit thousands to double digit thousands.
And think of it as, let's say there's a $200,000 price discrepancy in a property that you're looking at within the same suburb. So one's 800, one's 600, and one has been renovated quite significantly. That $200,000 difference in just stamp duty alone in Victoria, for example, could be an extra $11,000 back in your pocket. So $200,000 may be cheaper, but you save that $11,000 on stamp duty, and you could maybe inject that $11,000 on a cosmetic reno. Maybe you put an extra 30 in, spend 40 grand back up, and you can make that property look pretty good, and you're still 160,000 in front.
Yeah, and that profit margin is yours, not who you bought from.
That's right. All right, depreciation benefits. Why professionals should not recommend high depreciation properties. So I think this was a presentation we did back a while ago for CPA Australia, I think back in 2023. It's a while now, over 2 years ago. But this is a unit in the Infinity by the Crown Group. It's on 301 Botany Road in Zetland. It's where the Green Square Library is.
Fancy looking, isn't it?
Very fancy looking. And I just thought I'd put some information here. But like this was a contract that was signed in one of the units there. $1,079,500. The build was complete 4 years after. Must have moved in or rented out, I'm not sure. And then it was sold in August 2023 for $1.05 million. So in that period, it's actually gone backwards. So you've bought a brand new property. Let's say an accountant or a developer sold you this how do I word it? I wouldn't say junk. From an
off the plan.
Well,
it's definitely an off the plan.
It'd be nice living there. I'm sure it is. But it's like you've gone backwards where imagine if you invested back in 2015 into like another market, let's just say.
Well, yeah, Sydney was booming at that point in time, but only for another couple of years. 2017, it would have been Hobart. You could have bought a house. For that amount, you could have bought two houses in Hobart with a rental yield of something like 5%.
Yeah, you could have maybe gone, like I said, you could have bought, sold, but you could have gone into Tasmania, you could have gone into Brisbane, you could have gone into Perth. Like you could have been with that $1 million, so with that $1 million allocation, you could have close to easily doubled that to $2 million.
Yeah, in that 8 year period, I think I don't know offhand, but I suspect the national growth rate would have been close to 100%. So $1 million, that is an opportunity cost of $1 million.
You know what it is? It's this sunk cost, because I know it's happened to me before when I started my investment journey early on. I had a property that had no capital growth and I had no idea why I invested there. That was back in 2009. And it's like you've already put so much money into it. You've got it. You don't want the headache of selling and then buying. I ended up selling that property. But it's a matter of if someone's purchased this, they're still going to potentially defend it. It's not costing me much. It's doing really well. But once you actually break it down with a professional, you can see it's an underperforming property. And I'm very big on monitoring your property portfolio's performance over time.
Yeah, but that's a good point that you raise about that sunk cost bias. We've already put money into this. We've already spent $1 million. I want to believe that it's a good investment property, and maybe it had good cash flow. I don't know, but you've missed out on $1 million worth of capital growth.
I always used to take it like a lot harder, but these days I think running a business, we're growing our business. There's got to be some sunk cost, but you got to look at it as a learning experience, don't you? And go, okay, well, how can we make better decisions later on? And then hopefully people can actually learn from what we're showing here today.
Yeah. So if I was the investor here in this case, I'd be remembering that $1 million loss and just saying, I'm never going to make that mistake again.
And I've seen so many, like the amount of clients I've seen over the years, like they've come in and they've bought these brand new properties, and it's very rare that I've seen, I think there might have been one or two that have done okay, but a lot of these, especially in these high rises in Melbourne, like Docklands, certain parts of Melbourne, South Bank have just been atrocious.
Yeah.
So aim for that land to asset ratio. House first. If you can't afford it, if you don't go regional and your price point's still an issue, maybe you opt for a townhouse. You're still getting some land component, but yeah, I'd rather go for that than a unit.
Yeah, land to asset ratio. Yeah.
The only time I would actually even consider a unit would maybe be somewhere premium spot. You've always got that risk of oversupply, but I'm thinking maybe look somewhere in Sydney, small block, older block, good location, has strong demand continuously, but I'd rather put my money in most probably another pocket and get a house.
Yeah.
But everyone's different. So
So wrapping up, remember that appreciation is a good thing, depreciation is a bad thing, and the worst properties for depreciation are new properties. They've only just started depreciating. Yeah, they have 100% of their construction costs to go. So don't be lured in by the big tax considerations, the tax deductions. As soon as you take your eyes off capital growth, you're going to make a mistake in property investing. Now, there are some other expert busts that touch on similar topics. I think I might have mentioned episode number 3, new versus old. There's another one, episode number 21, which hasn't come out yet, but land, it's not about square meters. So it is it's the value. The land to asset ratio is a value thing. It's not a square meters thing. But yeah, check out that episode as well.
And the other advantage I'd like to finish up on is depending on where you purchase, that block size could be really important. So let's say you are buying a property that has a lot of depreciation. It's on a smaller block. You've potentially lost all subdivision potential on that property. Where if you buy an older property that you could maybe split, sell off, maybe you can do some duplexes or townhouses, you've got opportunity maybe 20, 30, 40 years in the future to be able to do something, because locations change, especially in these built out areas. You'll see that the houses will get knocked down and then rebuilt and sell for a premium.
Yeah,
so
you can't do that on 375 square meters.
You can't. So again, like if you're growing your portfolio, we're not to say that then they're going to be bad investments. There's just better ways to increase your probability, and you aim for those older properties.
That's right. Yeah.
So that wraps up episode 7 of the Expert Busting series. Join us in our next episode, which is episode 8, Why You Don't Make Money When You Buy. Take care and thanks for watching.